Hello and welcome to the LiveFitNow podcast. My name is Vicki Brown and I'm your host. My guest today is a hypnotherapist and energy healer. She set up her business with the goal of helping others achieve extraordinary transformations. Her journey to this point is a personal one and I look forward to speaking to her about it today. Thank you for agreeing to come onto the podcast. Lindsay Heath, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
I'm very pleased to see you today. So I really would like to start with, if you can tell us a little bit more about what hypnotherapy and energy healing are.
Yeah, sure. They're both kind of quite different, I suppose. So energy healing is probably the thing that people think is a bit woo-woo. It isn't as woo-woo as it sounds. It's based on science, really. So science tells us that everything in the world is made of energy and it's all vibrating at different frequencies. So for example, the chair you're sitting on, the table I've got my laptop on, it's all energy vibrating that then becomes matter. So we know that by science. So we ourselves are also all made of energy, and our energy extends out of us into our energy field. We can pick up on each other's energy. So you may have gone into a room before, and before someone's even said anything, you've thought, something's gone down here, something's happened, someone's in a bad mood. And it's because you're picking up on that energy that they're pushing out. So we're all energetic beings. We've all got this energy flowing around us and flowing out of us. And things can affect that energy that make us feel a bit rubbish. So we can start to get that energy stuck in different places, and that can result in feeling horrible emotionally. It can result in physical symptoms. So what we do with energy healing is basically working on releasing those blocks and enabling the energy to flow more freely so that you feel better, in a nutshell.
Absolutely, that makes perfect sense. And what is the difference between the energy healing and the hypnotherapy?
So the hypnotherapy, that's based on working with the subconscious mind. So with hypnotherapy, I'm guiding someone into hypnosis, which is an altered state of consciousness. It sounds far more scary than it is. Being hypnotized is really a feeling of being very relaxed, but also very alert. And when we're in that state, our subconscious mind comes to the fore. And then we can start to reprogram that subconscious mind to work more effectively for us to make the changes we want to make.
Fantastic. And can the subconscious mind get in the way of motivation and how we can work in our day-to-day?
Absolutely, yeah. We see that happen a lot. Perhaps if I explain what the subconscious mind is and how it works, that would be helpful. So we've got our conscious mind and our subconscious mind. So our conscious mind is the thinking, logical part of our mind. It's the part that says, right, I'm going to have this for breakfast. I've got this meeting today. I need to do this, that, and the other. It's also the part of our mind where we set our goals. So I'm going to lose 3 stone, or I'm going to train for this marathon. That's all going on in the conscious mind. The subconscious mind is basically, it works on programs. And these programs are built through our past experiences. So this all starts when we're born, basically. So if you think of a baby, their conscious mind is not developed enough to think about things analytically. If you say to a baby, the sky is pink with purple spots, they don't go, no, it's not, it's blue. They just accept that as given. We absorb things like a sponge when we're very small. And so all of this information comes into our subconscious mind. And we kind of start to create files of this information and these experiences. So, for example, if when you're very small, you're told, oh, look at you with your podgy little cheeks, or, oh, you got a bit of puppy fat. This all starts to go into this kind of file for, I'm a bit podgy. And as we get older, we might get more things like, oh, do you think you need to lose a bit of weight? Or that looks a bit tight on you, or whatever. And anything, information like that begins to get stored, and this file gets bigger and bigger. I'm podgy. And then it starts to work on its own program. So you'll see this as well later in life, this subconscious mind developing programs. So if you think about when you were younger and you were taught how to eat with a knife and fork, you would have had to have learnt it painstakingly how to do it. Now, I would guess the majority of us, when we sit down for dinner, we're not going, okay, which hand do I hold the knife in? Which hand do I hold the fork in? How do I cut the dinner? We just do it on autopilot. We do it automatically, and that's a subconscious program up and running. It's the same with driving a car. When you learn to drive, everything feels a bit overwhelming and there's all these things to learn. When we get into a car now, we don't sit down and go, okay, I need to put this into gear, I need to put my foot on this pedal. We just do it automatically while our mind is off elsewhere. So this is an example of these programs that get up and running through our experiences and information we take in, where the mind just goes off and does it for us. So that's how the subconscious works. How it can get in the way of things like motivation is that very often we're building programs that aren't useful for us. So it may be we've built a program that says, I'm lazy, or I'm big boned, I'm always going to be this weight, or I'm no good at self-discipline. And what happens is we use our conscious minds only 5% of the time. So we set our goal of, I want to run a marathon with our conscious mind, and that's running 5% of the show. 95% of the show is being run by these programs that are going, no, you can't do this, you're not motivated, you're not self-disciplined, whatever. So you've got 5% pushing against 95%, you can see who's going to win. So that's where the subconscious mind can get in the way of our plans to get fit or healthy.
You can see how easily that is the case. I mean, if it's 95% versus 5, it's not great odds really, is it? You wouldn't put a bet on that.
I know, but if you think about it, so much of what we do is autopilot. Just things like brushing your teeth. You don't stand there at the sink and go, and now I'm going to move my toothbrush in this direction.
No, quite. It made me think actually when you were saying about the driving the car. It's like those moments when you're doing a journey and you literally don't realize how far you've gone. You suddenly realize, how did I get here? Because you forget, especially on a motor. I find motorways are probably the most monotonous part of of driving. And you do, it's like, oh, I'm already at this junction. I thought I was only just got on.
And actually, it's funny you mention that, because when people think about hypnosis, they think, oh my God, it's this weird state like I've never been in before. And actually, I often use that example you've just given as a way of saying you will have been in a mild hypnotic state many times, like when you drive a car and you go off wherever, your subconscious mind is in charge. In that moment, it's driving the car for you. So actually, that's like a mild form of hypnosis while you've been going down the M4.
That seems so much less overwhelming, doesn't it, when you think it like that?
Also quite scary to think, oh my God, I'm driving hypnotised, but we say mild form, obviously.
And interestingly, because you're obviously saying we start learning, our subconscious mind starts learning literally as soon as we're born. Does that suggest that hypnotherapy and energy healing is actually useful for literally anybody to have, even if they don't necessarily perceive that they have an issue to deal with?
Yes, I always think it's useful. I would say if someone doesn't think they've got an issue, I think energy healing would be slightly different, because for some people you can just lie there and allow the healing to happen. So as well, it can work very well with children and everything else. For me, with hypnotherapy, I tend to work with clients who are motivated to make changes. Because when you work with someone who wants to change and perceives that they have a problem, it's going to be so much more effective. So, I mean, I'm not going to get anyone that comes to me that doesn't really want to be there, because they're not going to do it. And also, in order to be hypnotized, you have to want to be. I can't put someone into hypnosis if they don't want to be hypnotized. So I think it is important for someone to have an awareness of what's going on and what issue they have, even if they don't understand what's at the root of it, as most people don't. But having an awareness of, this is troubling me, but I really want to change it, I think is key to, like with what you do, I guess. You want people to come to you who want to get fit. They might not know how to, and they might struggle with motivation, but they want to do it and they recognise there's a need there. So I suppose it's similar.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it makes it more measurable as well, because, as you say, they know how they feel about a particular thing. So therefore, if they then feel better about it, they know they're making progress with it. Yeah. And I think very often, you know, we've all had our moments where we think we know what the root of the problem is, but actually it's not at all. That's just one of the side effects or the impacts, or that might be the thing, the trigger that makes you want to take action to change, but actually there's fundamental things that have gone on, as you say, often in childhood, or a long time ago, that some sort of trauma that's become part of us, and we don't necessarily realize that we need to unlock that, which I guess it means it's quite a sort of an emotive and emotional roller coaster for people, because they often have to dig deeper than perhaps they were expecting to.
It's interesting that you say that, because so often people will come in, and so someone might come in with a phobia or something and may say, oh, I've got this fear of flying and I know what's caused it. And I sit there and I think, you don't really, you think you know what's caused it, but if you knew what caused it, it wouldn't still be a problem, because there'd be a conscious awareness of it and you'd work through that. So very often people think they know what's at the root of something, and it's not. But what can happen is, so you mentioned triggers. So I work with a concept of initial sensitizing event, an ISE. So what can happen is, something can happen to someone, maybe they're 3 years old and they fall off a bike and they scream out crying, and mummy's busy drinking her gin in the garden with a friend and doesn't come up and help. And as a child, as a 3-year-old, that traumatizes them. Then they grow up, don't think anything of it. Something happens maybe when they're 15, and it may be nothing to do with falling off a bike. It may be that they're sitting in the classroom at school and the teacher doesn't answer their question or something. And that triggers the reaction that you happen. So we call that second bit a secondary sensitizing event. So it's almost like a trigger, and the real root of it is back in that first event. So often with hypnotherapy, you're picking up on lots of secondary events. So like with the fear of flying, for example, someone may say it was a bad flight. That bad flight was probably a secondary event, and the real cause of it is way back with something that's probably totally unrelated, and that as an adult doesn't even feel like a trauma. So yeah, it's really interesting when you start working back, and people are often so surprised with what's at the root of things.
Absolutely. And unraveling. And do you have to unravel in a particular order? So do you have to do secondary and then go back to primary, or do you have to deal with the primary?
No, it really depends, and you don't always have to do it like that anyway. So everyone's different and every issue is different. So I use different techniques all the time depending on what comes up with the person. So you don't always have to go through and do any kind of regression at all. It's often not very necessary, but very often things will jump around in order, and that's our subconscious mind leading the way and taking us to different things, and it will do it in whatever order it thinks is best. We just follow it wherever it goes, which can be quite an interesting journey. But no, it's never linear, it's never perfect. That's not, unfortunately, how our minds tend to work.
No, absolutely. We are complex creatures, aren't we? And do people often come, let's use an example, say for weight loss, but then actually you end up helping with 2, 3, 4 different issues, because actually they're knocking on to other things as well?
Yeah, weight loss is an interesting one, actually, because I do have a couple of weight loss clients who have purely just got in the habit of eating too much and the wrong things and lack of motivation. And that's a very straightforward process. We keep them on track and it works brilliantly. 8 or 9 times out of 10 with weight loss, that's not the case. There's emotional things going on beneath it. So yes, you can do stuff in hypnosis to help them to be more motivated and help them to choose the right foods and give them that motivation. But to really get to the crux of it, you've got to start unpicking some of the emotional stuff. It doesn't always mean having to talk about it or analyze it. That's the great thing about hypnosis. It can be very imaginative, and you can use lots of different techniques that don't involve having to go into detail and analysis, which I think people quite appreciate.
Absolutely. Yeah, some people just don't want to necessarily have to talk about every single issue with somebody else. And do you often use them together? So do you often have the hypnotherapy and the energy healing together, or are they often separate?
I wouldn't normally do it in the same session. So some people will come for one type of treatment, and then after so many I'll discuss it with them and say, do you know what, I think at this stage it would be useful to go into this. I think with anything, things build up, and if it's a more complex issue, you need to give something a bit of time and real sort of focus. But yeah, so some clients may get the benefit of both, but just not normally at the same time.
Yeah, understandable. It sounds like it would potentially a little bit too overwhelming to deal with all of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's exactly that. We are all so unique. It's you as a therapist, you're figuring out which techniques are best to use for the individual.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, someone can come in with the same concern as someone else, but their whole background and backstory and personality and everything is totally different. So you approach it a totally different way. It's not a one size fits all. Oh, you've come in with this, right, let's flick through and use that technique. It doesn't work. Not for me anyway, like that.
No, absolutely. That makes complete sense. And I actually think this perhaps is a perfect opportunity just to ask, are there any common myths in both of your fields that you would like to debunk right now? Because people have the wrong end of the stick.
Yeah, I don't know of any common myths around energy healing, because I think so few people even know what it is. But certainly with hypnosis, there's some myths. So the thing I often get asked is, will you make me cluck like a chicken? And I guess the answer to that is, if you want me to, I can. I'm guessing you don't want to pay money to do that. And I think what it is, people see this hypnosis on TV, this stage hypnosis, and that's what they think it is. And it's so different. When you go to see a stage hypnotist, it's all in the name of entertainment. So the hypnotist picks very carefully the right kind of people, and they're people who volunteer to do this, and they expect to get up on the stage and make a fool of themselves, and they want to do that, and that's why it happens. But no, in hypnotherapy, you as the therapist, you cannot make anyone do anything they don't want to do. So the client's subconscious knows what's right for them. So if I guided you into hypnosis now and said, tomorrow, Vicki, you're going to go and rob a bank, you're not going to get up tomorrow unless you want to. I just can't make you do that. So that's a common myth that I would like to debunk straight away.
There'd be a lot of crime being committed, wouldn't there, by other people if this was easy?
Exactly. And also I say, when people say, can you make me do things I don't want to do? And I think, if I had the power to do that, I would be guiding my boyfriend into hypnosis all the time. You will bring me breakfast in bed tomorrow. It doesn't work like that. The client is always in control. And I think the other thing I get asked a lot is, will I get stuck in hypnosis? And no, you won't, because there's nothing to be stuck in. It's not, as I've said to you before, when we talked about driving down the motorway, you're not in a weird kind of state like you've never been in before. You're just deeply relaxed but alert. So you can't be stuck in anything. At any point, if you want to open your eyes, you open your eyes and you're back as you were. So it's a really safe, effective way. But for some reason, and I think probably due to the things we've seen on TV and in stage hypnosis, people have got a bit scared by it. But there is nothing to fear.
So essentially, it's like awareness of a part of you that you don't normally pay attention to.
Yeah, and I think people will describe being in hypnosis as, at the end of a yoga or Pilates class or something, and you can get the relaxation part, and you're lying down, and the teacher's saying, and now relax all you must, and you have that lovely feeling of being really relaxed. Absolutely. Oh, this feels really good. But if the fire alarm were to go off, you'd be up in an instant and out. It's a bit like that. It's the same sort of feeling as that.
Absolutely, that makes perfect sense. And actually, it's interesting, you brought up the idea of these stage hypnotists, and I guess I'd quite like your opinion. Do you think they are a good thing for your industry, or perhaps do you think they do more harm than good?
It's hard to say. I don't think I could possibly say they do harm and they shouldn't be allowed to do what they do. What they do is really entertaining, and a lot of people enjoy it. So there's no issue with that. I think what's difficult about it for hypnotherapists is that people have a misunderstanding of it because they've seen that. So sometimes people can be reluctant to come because they think, oh my gosh, this is, I'm going to be running around, you can make me do anything. And so it makes our jobs a bit harder. But it's there for entertainment, so good on them.
Absolutely. And I'm guessing it raises awareness of it existing, of which, as you say, the energy healing, not so many people know about. Whereas because it can be entertaining and it has been used in that form, it means people are at least aware that it exists, and then therefore might look into it because they're curious.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are curious. I think we all are to some extent, are we, in terms of how our minds work and why we do the stuff we do and everything. I think a lot of us can be curious because none of us really know the workings of what goes on inside ourselves, outside, anywhere else. We don't know for sure. And I think all of us can be quite curious, and sort of especially understanding our own minds can, a lot of people will come in and they will be very curious but very nervous as well.
Absolutely. It makes perfect sense. Absolutely. And I think it's interesting to ask at this point, did you have a pivotal moment that led you to taking this path? Why do you do what you do now?
It wasn't a pivotal moment as such. It was kind of a number of steps, I suppose. So when I was back in my 20s, about 20 years ago,
Don't look it.
Edit that bit out. I was diagnosed with ME, or chronic fatigue syndrome, and at the time was pretty much told, we don't understand this illness, there's nothing we can do, off you go. And it had such an impact on my quality of life. I thought, I can't take that, I have to find a way to get better. So I went off and tried every therapy under the sun. I've spent tens of thousands of pounds on trying different things over the years, so many different things. And the first thing that really worked for me was hypnotherapy. I saw a fantastic lady in London when I lived there, and I had a number of sessions with her, and I soon began to understand how my thinking was affecting what I was feeling, which was affecting my body, and it all started to become clear how all of this is so interlinked. And I made so many sort of leaps in understanding during that. And then I remember after a few months, she said to me, Lindsay, I think you need to go and get your chakras cleared. And I remember kind of looking at her going, what on earth is a chakra? And so I went off and found this lady who could clear chakras, and it turned out she did energy healing. And that's how I got into that, because my first session there was unbelievable. I just came out feeling so different. So both of those two therapists for me stood out head and shoulders above the other 30, 40 I'd tried. And I'd been working in marketing for years, kind of enjoyed it, but not feeling fulfilled. Having that kind of thing, I think we all have at some point where we go, I want to do stuff that helps people. And so it kind of occurred to me, well, this stuff has just worked wonders for me. I want to learn it myself and help other people. So yeah, that's the number of pivotal moments, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes sense as well. I think when something works for you, as you're saying about curiosity before, like you actually want to really understand like why and what does it do and how do you do that? And as you say, then, well, why not do it for yourself so you can help other people? It's a very powerful thing, I think, when you're impacted by something yourself.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Because you totally believe 100% in it. So you're giving it your all and you're passionate about it, and you know it can help other people. It's not a case of, well, I've been on this course and I've learned this, so maybe it will help. So you know it does. You've got experience. So
exactly. It's so much more relatable as well, I think. If someone's been through something, even if it's not the same condition, but you've seen that someone's been helped so strongly by something, it makes you more open-minded to trying, I think, and there's more empathy there, and there's a greater connection because you know they've been through something and they feel better from it.
And I think that's why a lot of people, when you look at different types of therapists, a lot of people go into it later in life, and I think it's because we've had so many different experiences, emotional experiences, gone through grief, physical illness, all these kind of things, that we can bring that experience and that empathy and that understanding and compassion to our clients, and you know how it feels to be sitting in the other chair going through hell, and you can empathize with that person and help them through it. So yeah,
I couldn't agree with you more. And my moment happened just to come earlier. Like, I've honestly, the odds are I would be having a law career right now, not where I am right now. So mine just happened to come around 18 years old, and sort of in the couple of years following that completely changed how I chose to look after myself. So I think it's exactly that. When you have a pivotal moment in your life, I think that is so often the case, that you then go on to wanting to help others in some way if you can. And I think that's exactly it. And I do speak to lots of people that have made changes in their career or the path that they were perhaps going to take because of that.
Yeah. God, imagine if you were doing law now.
No, I'd be stuck in an office all the time. I couldn't stand it. I wouldn't get to meet and speak to all the people that I get to now. And you learn so much from talking to people, I think. And everyone has their own story and own experiences. And if you take the time to listen, we can all learn something from one another.
It's so true. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing your story. And I mean, I guess, what was the thing that actually inspired you to start your own business? There must have been quite a big leap to go from employed to self-employed.
Yeah, I mean, that's always a tough decision, isn't it? So I'd started the business in 2016, but was still working full time because I had to. It was more a financial change. I was able to get some other work as well that was self-employed stuff that meant that I could take the leap and leave the employed job, which was very scary, but well worth it.
Absolutely. Once you're there, I think most people don't regret it, but it's taking that giant leap, isn't it?
Yeah.
And having that flexibility to put your time and effort into the thing that you have the most passion for.
Yeah. And then it's a whole new learning because, of course, you're so used to a routine of going into the office or whatever it is every day. And suddenly you're, okay, I get to choose my own routine and my hours. And that can be a challenge in itself. So, yeah, it's a learning curve.
Absolutely. And getting that balance. I mean, you definitely go away from the whole 9 to 5. It completely changes. And it's very easy to fall into the 24/7. So it's finding that balance for your overall life work and well-being.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what have your biggest challenges been? I mean, that could be potentially sort of moving into the business, or quite easily it could be this time we're experiencing right now.
Yeah, it's certainly challenging at the moment, that's for sure. Trying to encourage people to come and spend money they haven't got is tricky. I think it would probably be that thing of having to learn everything. So when you're self-employed, you do it all, don't you? You, as you well know. So it's having to very quickly acquire new skills. Okay, so how do I put a website together? How do I do a plan for this? How do I do my accounts? So I think that was the biggest challenge for me, learning all of those new skills. How do I work technology, like the stuff we're using right now? Learning all of that as well as doing the day job, I think it's probably been the biggest challenge. Yeah.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. And I have to say, personally, for me, that's kind of, it is the biggest challenge, but also the bit that I love. I love the variety of it, and sort of being able to test yourself in different ways. And sometimes you surprise yourself at being able to do something, and then other times you think, probably best to outsource that one. But it's all part of the fun, isn't it?
That's it, and it's learning new stuff. And like with you with the podcast, and it's something new, and then you're like, okay, so I'm going to go and learn all this stuff and how I use the technology, but then you kind of get a feeling of pride once it's done as well, don't you? Oh, look at me, I taught myself how to do that.
Absolutely, all the hard work is your own accomplishment. Yeah. I'd like to actually take a moment, because we are at this time and perhaps we're not getting to see these people that need some help, but have you got any tips or techniques that you have in your tool belt that we could benefit from, that we can use in our day-to-day life, that might reduce stress, anxiety, or whatever else you may think of? Obviously, this is your expertise.
I guess, I mean, particularly at the moment, everyone's feeling a large number of people are feeling very anxious. There's a number of things you can do to help with that. So there's various different breathing techniques. I've got a couple on a video on my website. You'll also find them if you Google anywhere. So heart breathing or abdominal breathing, alternate nostril breathing, all those kind of things. Something that works really well is to really pay attention to the language you're using, whether it's in your head or out loud. So if you're sitting there going, it's lockdown, I'm stuck at home, I've got to do this, I have to stay here, that language is automatically negative. We're not going, I choose to stay at home and enjoy this time, so it's immediately affecting our thoughts, which is affecting our emotions, which is affecting our physical health. So paying attention to your thinking and your language, but also just trying to do things that change your state. So for example, I will often do this if I can feel my thoughts going down a track of this isn't good. I will stop myself, and sometimes just saying stop and changing your position, turning around or something, acknowledging where your thoughts are going, stop, turn around. And then if you can, try and think of a happy memory. So I'll do it. I'll grab my iPod, I'll put it on. I was going to say Walkman then, how old am I? I'll grab the iPod and put it on and put a song on that takes me back to a really happy time. And I'll just give myself 2 or 3 minutes to get back into that happy place. What can I see? What can I hear? What can I smell? And that, in doing that, our minds don't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. They've done loads of research on this, and it's been proven with various different experiments. So by believing that we're back somewhere, by imagining it, we're then releasing the feel-good chemicals, the chemicals we need, as opposed to the stress chemicals. So when you start to look into the neuroscience of it all, it makes total sense. So just taking yourself back to happy memories. And you can do it if you're family with kids. You can sit down with the kids and take it in turns and go, okay, what happy memory have we got of a day out? And you describe it to each other and live it and use all your senses to do it. And just by doing that, you're stopping that body's stress response, and you're starting to produce those feel-good chemicals.
Absolutely. It makes absolutely perfect sense. You're right. There is just endless amounts of research that has proven the power of that. And it's so easy for us all to do. It's just being aware that it's something that we can do.
Yeah.
And I guess music is a good way of doing that, because like you say, and I have exactly the same. In fact, I've been listening to older music, and it takes you back to that time in your life, and you can almost remember certain things that happened at that time, and it's quite a powerful trigger.
And it's weird, the more you do
else.
it, so if you pick, say, I don't know, 5 key memories, and they've got to be really good memories, and then you kind of alternate, but you'll find the more you go back into that memory, you start to remember things you'd forgotten. And I've done it recently with a couple of memories. I've gone, oh God, I'd forgotten that part. And it's really interesting. But I think what's useful is understanding the science behind it, because we get told this stuff about doing this breathing exercise or doing gratitude journal or whatever. And it's very easy to think, yeah, what's that going to do? But looking at the science that backs it up and seeing what it actually physiologically does to your body, I think can then help people go, oh, okay, yeah, there's a reason why I should do that.
Absolutely. And it is fascinating research. Likewise, I like looking into that research, because it's just amazing what the human mind and the body can do together, isn't it? Would you recommend like getting photo albums out and stuff like that to help? Because obviously some people are really good at switching on their imagination and remembering memories, but sometimes you need a trigger. So if you've got like an old photo album out, then you might remember more, because you see something to start the.
Not everyone is visual and able to do it. So you can use different senses. So if you're someone who's very affected by smell, if you get an old bottle of perfume or burn a candle or something, the smell might take you back, or the taste of the food, or the photo album. Another thing, and you've probably heard of vision boards before, where people produce these vision boards. I do a vision movie. So I've got an iPhone. I use iMovie because it's free. And I basically put all these pictures in there, and you can do it as stuff you've done, happy memories, or you can do it as stuff you want to achieve, stuff that inspires you. And you just put a collection of these images in, and then put it a soundtrack of a real feel-good song that puts you in a good mood. So I watch my vision movie when I wake up in the morning, and it's like, brilliant, I'm ready for the day. So yeah, and everyone's different. So people, looking through photos may be perfect. It may be listening to a song. Go with what works for you. Yeah,
it's just about giving it a test run, really, isn't it? Seeing, as you say, what works for you, what emotion, or rather what sense triggers the most escapism.
Yeah.
So that's a fantastic thing that everyone can do. And I will pop a link in the show notes to those breathing techniques, because I think breathing, again, is something, it's such a quick and simple thing that can really give us a reset.
Yeah. And the other thing, I've got a video on my website as well of how you can use an anchor. So it's another really good way of changing your state, where you get your body in a particular pose that immediately brings a certain emotion. So you see a lot of sports people use them, tennis players, golfers. So it may just be something like doing, putting your thumb and forefinger together, or holding a fist. And there's a video on my website that shows you how you can use that technique to start to build, so you can access that feel good feeling whenever you want to.
Oh, fantastic. I'll put a link to all of those things, anything that can help. And again, everything doesn't work for everybody. So it's just about, being open-minded, giving it a try and finding out which bits work for you. And then hopefully you'll see a little bit of improvement, and it will just improve your overall well-being.
It's so true. And like you say, it is just using what works. And I find it with clients. There's some techniques I use with clients and they're astounded. Oh my God, this has been amazing. For someone else, they're like, yeah, not so good. This is much better. So yeah, everyone's different.
Absolutely. That's the fun from our side as well, isn't it? And the fact we're trying to figure out what the best plan of attack is for each person and how they can help themselves. Because actually a lot of what we do is empowering the individual to help themselves. We're just giving them the tools and techniques so that then they can make those choices daily, because we're not there for them every single day.
Exactly. And I suppose for you, you're motivating people, but people have different types of motivation. So for some people, they may need to be told, get off your arse and get these exercises done, no excuses. For someone else, that would be the worst thing you could say, and then they need lots of, oh, haven't you done well? You've done really well, keep going. And it's knowing your client and knowing what works, isn't it?
Yeah, what incentives needed.
Yeah. I've
had several people say in the initial consultation, you're not going to shout at me, are you? Because if you shout at me, I'm not going to like this.
Oh.
Like, it's okay. It's okay. I'm really not that sort of trainer. There's plenty of them around, but it's not me. And this is quite a broad question, if I'm honest, because it can be interpreted in many different ways. But what inspires you? And this can be big picture or very much focused on your business. It's completely up to you how you want to interpret it.
Oh, gosh. I'm inspired by learning new stuff all the time. I love learning, and particularly about the mind and people. So that just fascinates me and I love it. But I'm so inspired by the people I work with. Because I think when you sit down with someone and they're sitting with you and they open up about sometimes incredibly personal things, incredibly challenging things, and for someone to open up like that and make themselves so vulnerable is such a brave thing to do. And it kind of makes you feel really humbled to be in the presence of that, and for them to really, tell you everything. It's really inspiring to see people with the courage to do that, but then to see when they make that change and they make that breakthrough and they come out the other side, and sometimes you can see it instantly in a moment, other times it's gradual. But sometimes I'll see a client and they'll walk in and I'll suddenly look at them and go, yeah, you're there, this is going to be your last session. I can see it in their face, the beam, the confidence, whatever. And just seeing that, I just think is incredible. And it's always, the work is always down to the client, and it will be the same for you. You can't get fit for someone. You're just there to guide and support and encourage and everything else. And it's the same for me. The work is done by the client, so you kind of look at them and think, well done you. And yeah, for me that's always inspiring. I love it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely spot on. And what is your vision for the future of Intuitive Giraffe? Is it much of the same, or do you have a hope for the future?
I've got a couple of irons in the fire. I've set up a wellbeing in the workplace service, so obviously that's a bit tricky at the moment with a lot of workplaces being closed. But yeah, running sort of resilience and stress workshops and how to manage your mind and emotions and that kind of thing. And I'm also in the early stages of putting together a couple of online courses. So helping people manage anxiety and also helping people recover from chronic illness. So they're my next big projects that I've got lined up.
Fantastic.
I'm sure there'll be many more that follow. It's how it goes, isn't it?
Absolutely. When you love learning, it never stops, because there's always the next field to take over.
Yeah.
And I have one quick question, sort of harking back to the hypnotherapy, just to give people a little bit more of an idea. Is it suitable for people of any age? Like, can you start at childhood? And is there a minimum or maximum amount of sessions you would expect to have with someone, or is it an individual basis?
In terms of age, yeah, you can work with anyone. So kids, you'd work with kids very differently. I don't tend to work with children myself, not for any particular reason. I just haven't had much experience of it. But kids can be great with hypnotherapy. You approach it very differently, but they're so imaginative and creative that they can be brilliant. And yeah, obviously right up until whatever age late in life. In terms of number of sessions, it's always really hard to answer because it depends on what the concern is and the background and everything. So quit smoking I will tend to do in one session. Weight loss will always be a number of sessions. Someone could come in with something. So I had a client a little while back who came in about teeth grinding, and she said, I've always ground my teeth ever since I was a baby. I was thinking, okay, that's 30 years, not sure how long this is going to take to sort out. One session, she stopped grinding her teeth, never started again. But more often than not, it's going to take you a few. And I think generally as an individual, you know how deep rooted or not your concern. So if you come in and you've got years of trauma in your past and unexpressed emotions and everything, that's not going to be something that's sorted out in a couple of sessions. That's going to take a number. So yeah, always hard to answer because everyone's different.
Absolutely. And do you think, is there anything that perhaps people wouldn't expect that you can help them with? I mean, weight loss, smoking, they're perhaps the sort of things that people would associate with something you could help. Are there more unusual things that you can help with that people may not necessarily think of?
Yeah, almost anything and everything that requires a change you could work with in hypnosis. So people will come with relationship problems, or sometimes problems with confidence around sex or anything like that. Motivation, giving a speech. You've been asked to be a best man or something and you've got to stand up and give a speech. Oh my God, how do I do it? Remembering stuff, learning stuff. You can help people to have better skills at learning or passing a driving test or something. Self-esteem, self-confidence, getting over traumas from the past. A lot of what I do tends to be people who have anxiety problems or trauma problems or emotional problems that have a number of different facets to it, and it's kind of working through all of those in an imaginative way.
Absolutely. Well, fantastic. I just wanted to bring that back up, so if people were wondering if there's something that they have to look at, whether you would be the right person for them. But it sounds like you really can potentially help with any sort of issue, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and I think most hypnotherapists will be the same. They'll normally speak to someone first. I always have a chat with someone on the phone at no cost, obviously, beforehand, to find out what the concern is and to make sure I can help. If I have a 90-year-old man phone me up and say, I haven't exercised in 60 years, but I want to run a marathon within an hour next week, then, that's going to be a no. I can't work miracles.
Yeah.
But, if you want to make a change of some sort and it's realistic, then yeah, pretty certain hypnotherapy can help. Yeah.
Fantastic. And I would like to finish off by giving you the floor to share one thing that you think everyone would benefit from knowing.
I guess I've already alluded to it, but it's really that mind-body connection and an understanding that what you're thinking in any moment is producing chemicals in your body that are affecting your physical health. And we know that because of all the scientific research. It's not a woo-woo alternative medicine view, it's fact. So really just that awareness of how integrated those things are. And some people don't believe it. And you think, well, think about the times where you've felt embarrassed and your cheeks have gone red, or you've felt nervous and you've had butterflies in your stomach or sweaty palms. That's your body instantly reacting to your thoughts. So we see it all the time. It's just an awareness of that, and then I suppose making the changes you need to make to prevent those thoughts or feelings causing ill health or whatever down the line.
Wonderful. I love that point. Absolutely. And I think if anyone would like to find and get in touch with you, this is a perfect opportunity to share. Whereabouts are you on the internet? How can we find you?
On Tinternet. I'm on, so I have a website, intuitivegiraffe.com. I'm on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn as well.
Perfect. I will pop links on the show notes so that people can just click through and find out a little bit more about you and get in touch if they're interested.
Fabulous. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you so much for your time today. It has been very, very interesting, and I'm sure everyone is going to love this conversation. So thank you ever so much for your time.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been great to chat with you.
You are so welcome. Thank you. So there we have it, episode 4 of the LiveFitNow podcast. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode, and I would really appreciate it if you could take a moment to share this podcast with your friends and family, and also rate and review on your chosen platform, because that really will help me spread the message. I can't wait to share with you future podcasts. There's lots of exciting things coming up. Anyway, I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for listening. Until the next time.